Coming up next on the politics of politics.
Why going ngumsana wena mina ngumZulu. Lapha engiqhuma khona ukukhuluma isiZulu. Mhlawumbe ungafika khona ukuthi I have a problem because you're more Tswana than I am.
Okay, but it's still a problem because I just feel like I should be able to speak Zulu ukudlula wena. You know what I mean? But then you go and do an ad and you're burning a flag. Chris, come on. What's that about? Who approved that? There's a lot of people that really trust you. There's a lot of people that believe in your capability. And they are caught between voting for Chris versus voting for the DA. Do you get that a lot? And what's your comment on that?
Yeah, thank you for the kind words. And thank you to your friends as well. They must definitely vote DA. There's no choice about it. Yeah, I mean, so this is the thing, is that I am a member of the Democratic Alliance. I've chosen the DA as my political home because I believe in the values, the principles, the policies, the institutions, the mechanism of the political party to deliver. Is that we actually try and build what we fought for in 1994. That rainbow nation. Is it difficult? Of course so. You know, you've got Tswanas and Zulus and, Afrikaners.
Kunzima. Do you guys really expect the the country to take you seriously with John Steenhuisen as a leader? Hi everyone, I'm your host Neo Lekabo and this is the Politics of Politics. Welcome. Our show is about getting behind the political scene to take you through the intricacies of South African politics. This is important in order to inform you leading up to the elections. Talking about the elections, they are days away, and we have been urging you over time to become an active voter. Please, we need people to vote. We need you to go out there and cast your mark for the sake of our country and its future. But next up, my political agenda. My political agenda is a segment of the show where I share my opinion about an issue that's in the media that is trending or something that I've been thinking about. And today I want to talk about John the Baptist. So I'm a Christian. Well, not a good one, but I'm one nonetheless. Okay. And in the book of Luke 7, there's a very interesting story of John the Baptist, who is a prophet, who is sitting in prison, having spent his life talking about a Messiah who will come and liberate the people. He's sitting in prison and he's starting to have doubts about whether the person that he introduced as the Messiah is really the Messiah. It's a very fascinating story. In there, he basically then calls his disciples and he sends them out as an envoy to Jesus. And he says to them, go and ask Jesus, go and ask this man, are you the one we've been waiting for? Or should we look for another? That's a very hard question. Imagine this. Imagine a prophet that has spent all his life talking about the voice in the wilderness and how the Messiah will come and liberate everybody and everyone will be free. And when the Messiah comes, he points at him and says, behold the Lamb of God who takes away the sin of the world. And the crowds is enchanted. Now he's in prison. He's hearing the preaching of Jesus. He's hearing about the miracles that Jesus is making. And something within him is stirred. And he's starting to ask, what if I made a mistake? What if this guy is not coming to liberate us? What if he's not the Messiah? And that's why he sends his disciples to go ask Jesus this question. Now, you can read the whole of the chapter. I'm not going to spoil it for you. But the point I'm making is, there are times even prophets that have believed that someone is a Messiah start to question whether that person is the Messiah after all. For 30 years, we have believed that there is a Messiah. We have believed that Mandela is the one. And after Mandela, Mbeki was the one. After President Mbeki, President Zuma was the one. After that, you had President Cyril Ramaphosa. When Ramaphosa came in, it was, here is the man that we're looking for. Now, elections are similar. Elections are an opportunity for you to sit down and reflect and ask those that you have voted for in the past, are you the one we've been looking for? Or should we look for another? And today, we've got a very interesting young man, mayor, and KZN premier candidate for the DA in the studio. And we're going to ask him if he is the one that KZN has been waiting for, or should they look for another? I'm talking about none other than the white man who can speak Zulu than many black people, including myself, Chris Pappas. Chris, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you very much for having me. It's been a while.
It's been forever.
It's been forever.
So, sinenkinga la, yabona? Because I'm Tswana. And I have a problem with ukhuluma isiZulu more than me.
Why going ngumswana wena mina ngumZulu? Lapha engiqhuma khona ukukhuluma isiZulu. Mhlawumbe ungafika khona ukuthi I have a problem because you're more Tswana than I am.
Okay, but it's still a problem because I just feel like I should be able to speak Zulu ukudlula wena. You know what I mean?
No, but I think it's beautiful that we can speak to each other in many languages. That's the important thing in South Africa.
No, I appreciate it, man. So how's it been? You've been a busy man.
Yeah. I mean, we were remarking yesterday. I mean, in the airport, I was 6 in the evening. I was in Johannesburg. 7 in the morning. I was back in the municipality. 6 in the evening, back in Johannesburg. I'm in PE later this week, so it's just been hectic.
No.
8 months now, I think we've been campaigning.
Yes.
But incredible. Hey, that's I love speaking to people.
Yeah.
So when you hear stories and it's great to be out with people.
Yeah, and we're going to get into some of your policy positions and the campaigning, but I feel stupid saying this, but just in case, just for some strange reason, someone doesn't know you. Can you tell them about Chris Pappas, when you started the politics, how you got into politics, how you got involved in the DA? How long have you been, the mayor of uMngeni local municipality for, and why are you the premier candidate for the DA?
So I started my political career at university. Well, I'm from KZN, from the Drakensberg, or Kwahlamba, an area called Tabamhlope, near a small town called Moeriver. I studied at the University of Pretoria, where I did my degree in town and regional planning. I've been doing my master's at the moment. And that's where I started to get involved in politics. I don't come from a political background. My parents are farmers and into logistics, and that's my family. Typical sort of Greek ancestry.
Sure.
But yeah, I started in the COPE student movement at the University of Pretoria. It was the time when COPE was
when it was serious.
When it was serious, yes.
Okay.
And there was a real hope that there would be a block away from the ANC.
I actually voted for them at some point.
Well, I represented them.
That first vote, I mean, like, I thought there was something coming there, Musiwa Lekota, Bazima Shilowa.
But I think there's a lot of political parties like that, they start and it's this huge hype and noise, and there's actually no substance behind it or no capacity. But I'm sure we'll talk about that later. So studied town planning, got involved, was elected as a student representative council member for academic affairs. So not a very political position, where I think that's where my upbringing and the reality of South Africa started to sort of merge. I was never, I was fortunate in my life. I never grew up, hungry or wanting or those sorts of things. I was able to get to where I was. But then I was in a situation where I must, deal with students who have got no food or no data to study or whatever the issues were that came to our table, and that's when I started to understand what politics was really about. There's politics of speeches and politics of rallies and those sorts of
retail politics.
Yes, but politics
we
is
are
about
going
power.
to expropriate the land without compensation.
Whatever's trending on Twitter at the particular time. But politics is actually about power and how you use power. And I was given an opportunity. I was given power as a member of the SRC to make a difference. It was pre-fees must fall, but it was that start of financial exclusions and sort of that discussion that was taking place. And I was given an opportunity where I was given power to impact people's lives. And I think that's what continues to motivate me, is that you can use power to change people's lives, or you can use power to advance your own interest or certain political interest or narrow business interest, whatever it might be. From there, I went into the private sector as a development economist when I graduated. I worked on mainly power stations, independent power to the start of load shedding.
Yes.
And so I did a lot of studies on power stations. I then went and became a staff member with the Democratic Alliance. So the politics bug had caught me at university, and I saw this vacancy. I left Cope by that stage because I'd actually got involved and I actually saw what politics was about. It wasn't just about Lekota or anyone else.
Yes.
It's about structures and capacity and institutions and processes and governance. And they didn't have that. It was just it was hype. And so I got involved as a staff member, so not as a politician in KZN. As soon as I got an opportunity to go back home, I jumped at it. So I worked in uMlazi, Chatsworth, all the way down to the south coast, Manzamdoti, uMkomazi.
Okay.
That was my start. 2014 elections, about 3 months before the election, I was employed to be an operations manager. And I had to run an election in a place that I really hadn't been before, and in an organization that I didn't know really how things worked, which I suppose it's a beautiful thing. So, I was employed on merit, not just because of my ideology or my stance, which is great. Grew from there to become a councillor in uMngeni, the youngest ward councillor at the time. In the metro, went from there as a member of the provincial legislature. So I served in the legislature at the time as well, the youngest member of the provincial legislature, where I had agriculture and rural development as a portfolio, and then later COCTA, or local government. Then stood as the mayor of the uMngeni local municipality, which we won as the Democratic Alliance in 2021 November.
And you won it outright. So
we did, outright majority. So thank you. We were the opposition. There was 9% difference between the DA and the ANC. There's only two parties in that council at that time. And we won, which was an 18-year-long journey. People often think, politics is about winning straight away. Sure. It's a long, arduous journey to get to that. KZN, South Africa, municipality is a big place where you've got to mobilize a lot of people and convince people of your plan, your vision. People must trust you. And so that's where I am now. I am the mayor of the uMngeni local municipality, 2.5 years into our first 5 years. And I've also put my hand up to be the premier candidate for the Democratic Alliance in KwaZulu-Natal in the upcoming elections on the 29th of May.
That's great. And it's quite exciting. I mean, so I hear good things about what you're doing at uMngeni local municipality. I'm not from KZN. I've got friends that are, they actually split between hardcore ANC and hardcore IFP. And both of them, through our informal discussions, are actually, and I'm not kidding, are actually considering voting for the DA for this upcoming elections. And their issue is that it's not the DA they're voting for, it's you, right? And I'm sure you get this a lot, right? Where I don't know how this is going to work out. There's a lot of people that really trust you. There's a lot of people that believe in your capability. And they are caught between voting for Chris versus voting for the DA. Do you get that a lot? And what's your comment on that?
Yeah, thank you for the kind words, and thank you to your friends as well. They must definitely vote DA, and there's no choice about it. Yeah, I mean, so this is the thing, is that I am a member of the Democratic Alliance. I've chosen the DA as my political home because I believe in the values, the principles, the policies, the institutions, the mechanism of the political party to deliver. The ideology, even though I'm not, a classical liberal, I'm more of a social liberal, but that's the spectrum that exists within the DA that we have discussions around. So, voting for me, you're also voting for the DA, and voting for the DA, you're also voting for me. I'm a leader in the party. I'm carrying the message. I'm carrying the policy. I'm implementing the program of action. I think what we do get a little bit lost in South African politics is that we think that political parties are just the leader or just the face on the poster, or whoever it might be. But a political party is an institution. It's got disciplinary processes. It's got policies. It's got research capacity. It's got mechanisms to engage with foreign affairs. It's not just a speech. It's not just a face. And I think that's what many people don't see. Is that for a political party to work, it actually has to have capacity. And specifically, if you want a political party that's serious about being in government. KZN is a big province. It is a lot of people. It is very complex. And you need a machine behind you to be able to navigate this complexity, to filter it into government, to make things work. So I do appreciate that, that as I've got a number of characteristics that are perhaps appealing about me that make people feel more at home with the DA, or trust the DA a bit more, or make it more attractive for people to listen to, which is good. But at the end of the day, the policies and the programs that I implement are those of the DA that we implement in 36 other municipalities and entire province.
And I understand that, but this is where people are coming from. The history of our country is such that progress has been driven by mostly the leaders the individuals that parties choose. You can go all the way from 1955 Freedom Charter, you can go all the way up to the 60s, you can come to the 70s and talk about Black consciousness movement, and you can move into the 80s around kind of like student uprising, boycotts, etc. Early 90s, the negotiation, CODESA 1, CODESA 2, leading up to 94. The experience of South Africans is that whatever the institution, the person at the helm, plays a massive role. That is why people could trust the ANC under Mandela, but will not trust the ANC under the current leadership of the ANC. And you cannot blame that. So you could say, and the ANC keeps saying, oh no, but it's about the party and the institution. Is the ANC still the ANC? No. Parties sometimes take the characteristics of their leader. The DA has got this thing, which I have against it, which is there's pockets of very competent young people, at least from my perspective. You look at Gideon Hill in the Western Cape, the mayor. I think it's fantastic. I think he's a proper technocrat. I think he's serious about governance and he actually understands what he's trying to do there. There might be criticism against him. That's fine. No problem. No one is perfect. There's a Chris Pappas and there's a few other people. Do you guys really expect the country to take you seriously with John Steenhuisen as a leader? I
do. I think that we have, there's a time and place for everyone within the organization. And John came into the DA. I mean, when I said didn't come in, he came to lead as the DA at a time when we were very fragmented internally. I'm not talking about like factions. I'm talking about we didn't really have direction. We were trying to be too much and we didn't understand who we were talking to and what we were saying. Our internal capacity that I was talking about had really been hollowed out and destroyed, weakened. So John came in as a manager. He came in as a person to get things right, who's got a clear message, who can give direction. Is he the leader of 10 years' time? Probably not. But for what the DA needed and what the DA needs now is someone who's clear on what our message is, who's clear for, give us instructions, let us do the work that we need to do.
No, what you need is someone who can appeal wider. John doesn't appeal wider. You appeal wider. I think the mayor of Cape Town appeal wider. I think part of the problem is that even the way he speaks and he's just kind of, when you're faced against very charismatic people, like, and most of them populist, right? And I'm not saying that you should now be populist.
Sure.
Very charismatic guys, even the new parties, etc. I don't know. I think there's a lot of people that you would have made you guys appeal wider. What John does for me is he reinforces the idea that you're a white party.
So I think there's two parts to that comment. So the first thing is that are there other people who appeal wider? I mean, it depends what you're looking for. Are you looking for appeal more to Afrikaans people, to young black people, to rural people, whatever it might be?
If you want to win the elections, you're talking to black
No,
people.
that's what I'm saying. So depending on what you're saying. So we're not going for 80% of the population, because then you're trying to compete with someone who's trying to vote for the EFF on a radical side and maybe MP and others. So, but the point is this. Is that he was democratically elected through the party structure. So he wasn't just put there because he was, you're going to be great, you'll look great on a poster, or you're going to speak nicely, or whatever it might be. I think that's an important thing, is that it was democratically elected by membership who believed in what he was selling at the time, something credible, something concrete. Then the second part was about sort of the populist message, the country being majority black. That is the type of electorate that you're going for. So I can't change my race, as an example. I can sound better, I can sound different, I can have a different approach to things.
That's still a problem.
Say again.
Ukhulumisa Zulu better than me.
But that's
still my jealous point.
But that's, I think that's I'm going to say a privilege, because I grew up in an environment where I was immersed in the culture and I was immersed in the language, and that happens to be a circumstance of my birth.
Sure.
But what we want is a country where the circumstances of your birth are not an inhibitor to where you go. So John can't help it that he didn't grow up speaking isiZulu or whatever the issue might be. You can't help that his skin is white or that he's 10 years older than me. But you don't want the circumstance of your birth to be an inhibitor. I think what we misjudge people on is their ability to lead, the ability to provide a clear vision, and the ability to mobilize people behind them. And now the DA is not just John Steenhuisen. There's Saviwe and Solly and me, and there's lots of people.
I like Saviwe as well, yeah.
There's a range of leaders. So the voice that he carries is all of our voice. And when he does something wrong, he comes back and accounts. When he does right, we appreciate that and we take the party forward. But the important part is that the DA is not just John Steenhuisen. Just like it wasn't Maya Mane or Helen Ziller or Tony Leon. It is a collective across the country of capable leaders who are leading in different sectors and spheres.
Yeah, and enough about John.
Have you got something against John?
No, it'll get you into trouble if you start to. I do actually. I think that I always say that I hold oppositions to a higher standard than I hold the ANC. I don't agree this idea that when you speak to people and they're like, it's like, when you speak to people and you're like, oh, but why is the ANC stealing? Oh, but during apartheid, how much white people stole during that?
Yeah.
So, okay, but how is that the benchmark? How is that the standard? We need to be better.
Yeah.
Right? And I think I do always hold the opposition to a high standard. But let's talk about your policies, right? So you talk about a few things, but the one that I want to start with is you're talking about creating 300,000 real jobs. I think that's something that is very needed, but everyone is talking about creating jobs. What is different about the jobs that you want to create from your policy compared to what everyone else? Some people are talking about 2 million jobs.
So I think, we could have been populist and said we're going to create 10 million jobs in KZN.
Yeah. We've heard that before, right?
We're
going to create 5 million jobs.
And 1 million houses in Alex.
1 million houses in Alex.
Yeah, we've heard that, and I think South Africans are now seeing through the BS. If I can put it that way.
Yeah, the bullshit.
Yeah. So our 300,000 is a realistic target that we believe we can achieve. And obviously this is looked at sort of how places like the Western Cape, how places like Cape Town have achieved a certain growth and what they've done to get there. So our biggest drive it's an infrastructure-led development, specifically in KZN because it is quite rural and a lot of the infrastructure in our small towns and cities has either collapsed or is collapsing. Mm-hmm. So by investing in that infrastructure, you create those opportunities. But what you also do is open up new markets. So we have, as an example, beautiful game reserves. We have beautiful coastlines, but many of the places are inaccessible. So hotels close down, or the little restaurant that could be doing better and employ 3 more people isn't there because people can't come in their small cars from their towns. So by investing in our core sectors, one being our roads and logistics. If you look at the Port of Durban, for example, the stormwater drainage there is so bad that some of the businesses have closed down because every time it rains, the city has not expanded that stormwater network and their factories get flooded. So those are small interventions that we can make to bring people back and to ignite new growth. But there's an important part of economic growth that we have to talk about, and that is small business. While it's great to have big mines and big manufacturing companies, we have to get small business working. Many of our towns and cities in KZN, the small towns, are collapsing. The economies there survive on just grants. And that happens once or twice a month, and then that's finished. So we have to get those small businesses to a point where it's easier for them to open and sustain themselves. And then to provide that leg up. If you're talking about real transformation and real empowerment, then let's stop talking about the guys at the top who are getting the same tenders over and over. But let's look to use state resources to take the person who has, a small mechanic shop. Who all they need is 25,000 Rand to buy a piece of machinery that can take their business to the next level. And that's what we're looking at. We do it in the municipality that I run at the moment. We provide small existing businesses that have got a short track record of growth. We say, how do we take you to the next level? But then to go back to say, these are not pie in the sky sort of policies. A lot of political parties come along and they'll show you great manifesto. They're so glossy, and ChatGPT makes it easy to type down the policies in there. But we're actually doing it at like right now. Whatever criticism there might be of the Western Cape and the city of Cape Town, which are valid and must be resolved, no one can deny that statistically the most amount of jobs that have been created in this country come from that region. The best economic growth happens in that region. The lowest unemployment happens in that region. You can have various debates.
If you look at the quarterly labor force survey, it supports your
Exactly.
argument.
And that's not DA statistics.
Sure.
That is National Government Stats SA statistics.
Sure.
So there's something that they're doing there that is leading to confidence, that is leading to growth. Whether it is an investment in new economies, such as the tech economies around Amazon, around creating innovative hubs there, work from home opportunities, whether it's taking advantage of the existing tourism opportunities by investing in the airport or making sure that the CBD is clean, that infrastructure is working, or whether it is attracting new business to say, well, Johannesburg is failing. Come here, look, we've invested 47 billion rand over the next 3 years into water and sanitation infrastructure, three times the amount of Joburg. That shows us that we're serious about your business. Something that they're doing.
So earlier on when I was criticizing Steenhuisen, and I'm going to go back there, one of the things that I was looking at the Auditor General's report, and actually the Western Cape spends quite a lot of money in townships.
It does.
Contrary to popular belief. Somehow that message is not coming through.
Yeah, again, I mean, so politics is always about perception, and that's our job as a political party and as political parties to convince people. But the reality is the city of Cape Town spends 78% of its budget on poor communities and or developing communities, underdeveloped communities. And the same, there's 75% I think is of the Western Cape government. And that's the reality. But the other unfair comparison that we seem to forget about is that whether it's Nyanga, Khayelitsha, or Gugulethu, we seem to think that those are the only 3 townships in South Africa. And we forget that we have Tembisa and Alex and uMngeni and KwaMashu and wherever it might be. And if you go and compare what is happening in those township areas, which are things that didn't start, now. They are historic. We've inherited new governments, whether it's ANC or DA, have inherited those from apartheid. So when you compare, of course, Khayelitsha is not going to be like Camps Bay. uMngeni is not going to be like uMhlanga. Sandton is not going to be like Alex. But what you need to make sure is a couple of things. One, that there's constant movement forward in terms of development. And when I talk about development, I'm talking about what local government is supposed to do. Is there water and sanitation? Are the roads maintained? Is there electricity? All of those sorts of things. And that's the focus of local government, right? Is to make sure that the basics are done right. The second thing that we have to look at when comparing all these areas is to say, well, what is the human development side of it? What are we doing around healthcare? What are you doing around education? What are you doing around social services, parks, whatever those, recreational facilities? And when you go to uMngeni, I'm speaking now from home.
Sure.
You go to Prince Msheni Hospital. You go there to die. It's a mortuary.
Sure.
Then you go to Khayelitsha, and the DA-led Western Cape has built a brand new facility there that is world class. When you go to KwaMashu, the Go Durban system that has had billions of rand spent on it was supposed to have been opened 6 years ago, I think it was now. It's still standing unopened. But you go to Khayelitsha and there are buses, public transport provided by the city that you can get on at a less rate than taxis.
But then how are you going to make sure that for KZN you get the outright majority that you have in the Western Cape? KZN is quite competitive. And if you throw in the emergence of MK Party, it makes it maybe it's an advantage for you because then they split the votes on the left and I suppose on the center and center right, you that space is still uncontested there. What is the plan? Are you banking on the multi-party charter to co-govern, or do you think that you'll be able to get an outright majority in KZN?
So no one's going to get an outright majority in KZN. Any political party that says they are delusional, then they don't understand the political space that they're working in. So where KZN is heading to a space where there will be a coalition government. What that looks like, obviously the results must determine. So our objective is to get the most number of votes to be able to be the biggest single player. Whether or not we'll be the biggest, the second biggest, or third biggest, that time will tell. But yes, our obvious choice is to make the multi-party charter work. In KZN, that's largely with the IFP. I think here in Gauteng you have a much more contested space, so there's many more of those parties that play a role. In the legislature in KZN, the reality is that there's the ACDP, the IFP, and the DA. Freedom Front doesn't exist in the KZN legislature. Okay. So it's those three political parties, if you look at the multi-party charter, that have any influence in the legislature. So that's what we want to make. We want to make work. That's our objective, is to make the multi-party charter work. Now, other political parties must go campaign for themselves. They must go. We're not going to do that for them. But I think the obvious partnership is the DA and the IFP. with those parties that get 1 or 2 seats.
What do you think the EFF's performance will be in KZN?
I think they perform dismally.
I think so.
I think so.
I mean, I watched when they did their celebration at Moses Mabhida, and I saw that strategically, politically, I appreciate what they were doing in terms of trying to show force, etc., and to show that we're here. And it's one of those things, it's like, for instance, in fighting, when you hit someone and they smile, they're like, "Oh, you're not hurting me," but they're hurt.
Yeah.
So the fact that you actually go there and you like put up a show, it means that you are worried about that. But why do you think they'll perform dismally?
So 2 things. So they filled Moses Mabhida before the emergence of MK.
Okay.
So that is okay. So that's the first reason that the MK is a different sounding version of the EFF in the KZN context. It's about radical economic transformation, RET. It's about destroying colonialism. That rhetoric that they talk. So it's the same thing. Disenfranchised or disillusioned ANC voters who might have chosen the EFF because they didn't believe that IFP was radical enough, and maybe the DA is too centrist enough, or they didn't trust the DA, whatever the reason might be, now have a different home. So they can actually choose something that is more local. It is more KZN. That's the first thing. The second thing around the EFF is that despite our history as a province, people actually don't like violence. People don't want to vote for something that is.
I'm a Zulu.
That's what I say. Despite the history, people don't want their politicians. You always see, whether it's Hlabisa, uNtuli, Pappas, Rogers, Ntolo, whoever it is from any political party, we always advocate for peace. But the EFF doesn't. The EFF advocates for violence. They have a very violent demeanor, and people don't like that in KZN. We understand our history. And we are generally a robust, I wouldn't say violent, robust people.
Well, the EFF will say they're not advocating for violence, they're just radical.
People don't like that. People don't like radical in the sense of that sort of advocacy in KZN. So their vote then suddenly diminishes. You even saw when the MK has steered away from being violent. Where there have been their members who have deviated from the message, they've removed them, taken them out, squashed their voice, whatever it might be. So that's why I think that the EFF won't do well in KZN. I think they'll get 7% or less, so round about there, give or take a percentage, compared to where they could have been before the emergence of the MK. But you just look at successive elections, by-elections, performance in municipalities, they really haven't grown, they've stagnated. I think they might have an issue in Gauteng as well, and in parts of Mpumalanga. But the real contestation is MK, DA, IFP, ANC in the province.
Okay. I was in KZN last week, and I saw your posters, and they all have 1 + 1 is equals to win. I didn't get that.
Cool. So this is, people often think you need some sort of miracle to be able to win elections, but the reality is you just need more votes on election day in the box.
Okay.
Now the DA has 14% roughly in the province.
Yeah.
If every DA voter just gets one other person.
Yeah.
And that could be someone who has never voted, someone who stayed away, someone who might have voted for a different political party in the election. It could be a newly registered person, it could be an employee, it could be a neighbor, it could be whoever.
So it's incremental.
If every single DA voter finds one other person, I mean, it's a catchphrase. It's hypothetical. But
I didn't get it.
But now you understand it.
Yeah, I do. Are you going to fire whoever came up with it?
To 28%.
Are you going to fire whoever came up with it? Because I didn't get it.
No, but you're not there.
Okay.
You're not there. I'll show you. Go like this. You see? Go like this. We do this whole thing in the public meetings.
Yes, I've seen you.
You've seen that. And everyone stands up and everyone stands up. And they're like, oh, okay.
No, I've seen that. And that's great. So you're talking about rescuing SA, at least at a national level.
Yeah.
And I know I'm jumping between national DA politics and KZN, which is where you're the premier candidate. But I think it's important for people to understand kind of like they all kind of like fit together. I'm not going to waste the question by saying, what are you trying to rescue SA from, whatever the case is, because I think that's an obvious answer there. But then you go and do an ad and you're banning a flag. Chris, come on. What's that about? Who approved that?
So the fact that you're sitting here asking me this question means that advert achieved what it's supposed to do. Because now what I do is tell you this, unless you're going to edit it out. As I say that, number one, it wasn't really a flag. It was AI, right? So it's no flag was actually burnt. But it does this. it creates a conversation about the binary choice that we have in South Africa. And you said it yourself.
Yes.
That if the EFF gets into government, it will be a disaster.
Yes.
You have it here in Johannesburg.
Yeah.
So the choice is that you either have an ANC EFF disaster, or we have something different, alternative. It's hopeful. Now, as a person who comes from KZN that saw the riots and actually saw things burning, that advert hits a little bit closer to home for me, because I realize what it can actually mean. But at the end of the advert, the flag comes back. The flag comes back to say that this is actually hope. But what it's supposed to do is create a conversation, which it's doing very well, actually. I mean, you're in media, you're a communicator, so it's doing that very well. To give us a platform to talk about the choices that we have in South Africa. That disaster, John calls it the Doomsday Coalition, or an alternative for hope. So we're saying, don't vote for the ANC, don't vote for the EF, and now more recently the MK, but vote for an alternative. The preferred choice being the DA.
But you seem to be coming up against everyone. I mean, I understand from ideologically, I understand, I don't expect you guys to say, oh, vote for the ANC or DA. But now you're coming against PA and Rise Mzansi, and I mean, what did John call them? Mercenary parties. I don't know if Boss was included in that or not. I know Rise Mzansi was, I know Patriotic Alliance was. Is it electioneering, or do you honestly believe that you're the only people that can save this country?
I don't think we would have pioneered and tried to make the multi-party charter work. I mean, that's where it started. The multi-party charter was born out of a DA Congress. That was John's closing speech to say that he is going to approach opposition leaders who are like-minded, who have the same objectives, to try and form a pre-election bloc. So like I said before, with the IFP sort of in KZN, we all have to go out there and campaign.
Sure.
And we convince people that we're the best option. But that doesn't necessarily mean that we haven't agreed on the plans that we need to fix the country. And I think that's what it's all about. The multi-party charter is a commitment by the DA. It is we spend a lot of resources, DA's resources, to try and make the multi-party charter work, because we believe that it needs to work for the sake of South Africa. And those people who, and it's very disingenuous of those people who say, oh no, we're going out there to campaign to get rid of the ANC. We don't believe in the opposition parties coming together now. Vote for us, but then after the election we'll go to them. Isn't that a bit disingenuous to say, well, the multi-party charter, this group of opposition parties, is not good enough for us now, but after the election, when we want to get these positions that we're promising people that we're going to get. I don't think
it's disingenuous. I think it's practical. I think where they're coming from is the fact that they understand that tying themselves to the DA, it means tying themselves to the multi-party charter, by extension, means they are being seen as tying themselves to the DA, which means all the criticism that the DA comes with, they also inherit that. So from their perspective, I would imagine we need to go out and there's a big part of the voting bloc that does not vote, that wants something different. They've already rejected the DA, they've already rejected the ANC and the EFF and all of these things. We want to get that bloc in. But they say, practically though speaking, when it comes to governing, we know that no one is going to get an outright majority. I think it's a fair statement, don't you think?
I think it can be balanced. The balance to your argument would say this, or your debate would say this, is that why then campaign in areas where the DA gets 85 or 90% of the vote? Surely, like we're doing in KZN, surely the opportunity lies where the MK is now capitalizing on. If Rise Mzansi, as an example that you used, had any sort of gravitas, then it would have become like the MK party. It would be competing at a 7, 8, 9% nationally and 25% provincially. Because where's the MK fishing? The MK is fishing in that pool of voters that you're talking about, that don't want the IFP or the ANC or the DA or the EFF, but are looking for a different political home, or looking to be mobilized in a different way. But the reality is that the majority of the votes that are coming for these new political parties are in majority DA areas. Now, does that say something about the DA and how we need to communicate and win back voters or whatever? Yes, of course, and that's a different discussion. But surely the opportunity lies in that big block of ANC voters that are looking for a different home.
No, sure, and it's fair, but the argument could also be made that if the ANC has failed in 30 years to create a better South Africa, the DA has failed over the past 30 years to unseat the ANC.
No, not necessarily. I think that we could have done better. That we'd always want to do better. But I think we've played our role as the official opposition of the country and maintained our identity so far as a centrist party. We haven't deviated from trying to win votes on extreme sides, and that is difficult. The second thing that we do, and that there's no other major political party that does this, and I think we often get criticized for it, but it's actually something that history will look back on and say, actually well done to the DA, is that we actually try and build what we fought for in 1994. That rainbow nation. Is it difficult? Of course so. You've got Tswanas and Zulus and Afrikaners. And you have to bring people together to have a discussion.
Yeah.
And you don't see the ANC doing that. You go to an ANC Congress, it's majority black people, mostly black people. EFF the same. You go to Freedom Front and it's only white people, and they advocate and they do it in their speeches. They say we are fighting for what does the EF say?
Economic freedom in our lifetime.
No. So Africans in general, but South Africans.
No. It says Africans in general, but blacks in particular.
Yeah. So that's their target market. When the DA when we go out there, we say, well, we want South Africans who believe in non-racialism, the rule of law, constitutionalism, opportunities, a free market economy, support for those who need to be supported.
But there's a difference between people that, of course, people believe in it, but they're saying, look, but are you actually going to be addressing me? Part of your problem is that you've been losing a lot of black voters. Not black voters, sorry. You've been losing a lot of black leaders over time, and I don't want us to get into that for whatever the reason is. Can you please try and get some black leaders into your party to stay?
But you don't. This is always an argument that I have, is that you look at someone like, I don't want to use black people as numbers because I think that's unfair. So the first thing is look, the most racist party is the ANC.
No, I agree with you.
They kicked out Jacob Zuma, they've kicked out, how many black leaders have the ANC kicked out? But you don't go to them and say, why are you kicking out black leaders to the ANC?
Yeah.
You go to Action SA.
No, but because they replace them with other black leaders.
But the DA does the same.
No, the DA doesn't do the same. The DA replaces black leaders with white leaders.
No, that's not true. So I think if
I'm thinking about Musi and John.
Okay, so Musi is one person. Musi also left with Ethel Trollop.
Yes.
Musi also left with
Pumzile van Dam. Well, later on, I suppose.
Then there was some other white guys that also left, campaign managers and things like that. But when you look at the DA as a whole, two things. So firstly, is that the idea that someone has to join a political party and stay there until they're old like me,
years old.
Which it's free membership. That's the first thing. So you come, you go. Whatever reason you use to come and go, that's up to you, because the party was good enough for you up until you didn't win a position.
Sure.
And then a day later, it's suddenly no longer good enough for you. Herman Mashaba, the party was good enough for him to be mayor, but when we refused to partner with the EFF, suddenly we weren't good enough for him. So, we must look through the noise as well. The second thing is that, and I said it earlier, I don't like to use like as black people as a metric.
Sure.
But the reality is that there's really good black leaders in the DA, whether it is the chief whip in parliament, whether it is my own deputy mayor, whether it is...
Sandile, where's Sandile?
Where's he gone?
Sandile's gone now.
But I mean, so you say yourself, what is a black leader? We have many black leaders in the DA who are doing incredible work. The third thing is this, is that if you look at many of the people who the black leaders who have come and gone in the DA, many of them peaked very young, and then weren't willing to take a back seat. I'm not saying this is the story with everyone. Bongani Boloi, he was the mayor of one of the best run municipalities in the country.
Midvaal, yeah.
And he wanted to impose himself as the premier for the DA in Gauteng without going through the process. So he peaked and was unwilling to step back and follow process. When you look at uMngeni, he was the leader of the party. Where do you go from there? Humble yourself to become a backbencher or become a spokesperson or become part of the institution, contribute valuable in that way. And there's many other people that you could point to.
Do you think that, what do you think a country under the DA would look like?
So, firstly is accountability. I think that the DA is very good at accountability. I'm not going to talk about like roads that work and
sure.
That's what we know. Those are the easier things,
sure.
Houses and water. But it's accountability. We lack accountability in our country. We get criticized for it. When there's a leader who doesn't do well and we hold them accountable and then they leave, then you say, why black people leaving, whatever. But accountability in government as well. We mustn't be scared to hold people accountable. The second thing is transparency. I think that, to our credit, we are one of the most transparent, if not the most transparent political party in government. We have good relationships with the media. We give people what we need, sometimes to our own detriment, but that's the important thing, is that information belongs to the people. we exist in a society now, or a country, where the government is shady. Everything happens and we don't actually know what's happening. The third thing is fairness. There's no fairness in the way that things are run at the moment, whether it is systems of cadre deployment, whether it is irregularities in awarding of contracts, whether it is the system of BEE, which excludes the majority of black South Africans from actually participating in the economy. We need fairness, and I think that's one of the things that the DA government will bring. So fairness, accountability, transparency, and I think an important one is confidence. People lack confidence in Project South Africa. We sort of that the Rainbow Nation idea has diminished. Us on the global stage as this leader of human rights and whatever it might be.
We've lost our standing.
We don't hold that weight anymore. So, and then that filters down to local government. Confidence that I can start a business and it can grow. Confidence that it's going to be land expropriation today and not tomorrow. Then nationalized today and not tomorrow. And then the president gets removed after 2 years in government because suddenly there's a factional change. We just need a bit of confidence in Project South Africa.
Okay, so. Chris, we've run out of time, believe it or not.
That was so quick. You didn't even ask me the hard questions.
I know, right? Because I like you. So last question for you, Chris. Most people are worried about a coalition government. So in certain metros, especially here in Gauteng, Ekurhuleni being one, City of Joburg being another, coalition arrangements have brought instability in a massive way. And we are now talking coalition at a provincial level, KZN, and we may see that in Gauteng as well. And we're talking coalition at a national level. What do you say to people that are saying, look, I'm worried about a coalition, man. Like, I know that's where we're going, but it's not delivering in my municipality, in Ekurhuleni or in City of Joburg or anywhere else in the country. How are you going to make this thing work?
So the first thing is that we're in a young democracy. I mean, we're 30 years into our democracy. We're really young comparatively across the world. And this is a necessary step if we choose to accept that we live in a multi-party democracy where anyone can just get fake signatures and start a political party. Multi-party democracy is here to stay unless we change that. So don't fear democracy. Don't fear that democratic process. Embrace it as part. It's messy and that's what it is, but we'll get to a point where it looks something more coherent and more stable. But the second thing is that the power is actually in your hands. So you say, I'm a bit scared about coalitions. I don't know what's happening. But the power is in your hands. You choose to make a coalition of 60 parties. I don't know how many you've got here. You've got something like 20-something parties in the city of Johannesburg. You choose that as the voter. You vote for a party that starts up 6 months before the election, believes they're going to become mayor, and then they get one seat. It's tough to run an election and to build an institution. So as the voters need to make that choice. Do you want a messy government where there's a lot of people with 1 seat in parliament or 2 seats in parliament or your provincial legislature? Or do you want to say, well, there are established political parties. They're not perfect. No political party is. I might not like their view on that, but actually they're quite good in government. Or actually their stance on radical economic transformation is the one that I believe needs to come in, and they're established. And then you choose those. And you build a stable coalition in the middle. So those people who are nervous about coalitions, the power is really in your hands to determine what those coalitions look like. The third thing is that I'm excited for the future of South Africa. We have a lot of problems. There's a lot of suffering. There's a lot of pain. There's a lot of things that need to change. Whether it is tough conversations around what transformation looks like, whether it is issues around land, whether there's a lot of conversations that currently, actually, if you think leaders of today have failed to have.
Yes.
People that your age and my age still need to have and be able to solve. But I'm excited because there is so much opportunity, because we generally, South Africans are good people. We're not defined by our political leaders. And that's what excites me, is that having traveled across KZN, having had the privilege to travel across the country during this election, South Africans are good people. And we want good for each other. We are not our political leaders, and we're not defined by the conversations that happened on Twitter that divide people or conflicts around the world that try to pull us into different extreme groups.
I see why people like you. Round 2, one day,
Round 2 what? Mayor? Oh,
yes.
Yeah. But you must ask tough questions. Thank you.
We can go harder.
Appreciate it.
Chris, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate your time. I don't take it for granted. I know you're busy over the elections and everything else. Good luck. Our show aims to really inform South Africans, really bring the views that we hear people complain about, and help them to navigate that long ballot box. And I think you've helped us do that today. So thank you very much.
Sabonga ku.
Yeah,